Hello, beautiful people. Happy Sunday. I hope you are all doing well. We've just experienced the last final lunar eclipse full moon in Taurus that took place last night, where depending where you are in the world, it might have happened at a different time of the day. For some of you, it even happened on Sunday if you are living in Asia or Australia or that side of the world. For me here in Europe, it happened just before 10:30 at 10:24 p.m. Here in Central Europe. So this is the energies of the after effects. Of course, as we are all aware, this was the last final eclipse of the Scorpio Taurus axis. They were taking place for the past 2 years. And actually, to start with, I just want to let everybody know that this is my personal share, my practical application of astrology video. Of course, I will put some astrology into the context, but I will be mostly sharing my personal experience, which is why I've decided to switch them around and release my astrological forecast first and wait with my personal share and release it post the eclipse, because this eclipse for me was very personal. It happened in conjunction with my sun. I am a Taurus sun on 5 degrees, so it exactly hit my sun. And actually natally I have Sun Pluto opposition. My Pluto is in Scorpio, which I mentioned quite a few times already, and also my nodes are in Scorpio Taurus axis, so this eclipse has been quite potent for me, and I definitely have been feeling it even prior to the eclipse. Actually, my environment that I find myself in, my family, everybody's been feeling this eclipse. My mom is also Taurus, so she also felt it. But all in all, I just wanted to say that I needed a time to actually introspect and reflect on what is culminating for me, what started in my life in November 2021 that now I'm regaining more clarity about and having the opportunity to potentially close this cycle, like having a full understanding of what that 2-year cycle was about for me, because as I mentioned, this is very personal. All the eclipses that were taking place in Scorpio and Taurus hit something in my chart, because I have a lot of planets in the fixed signs. So of course that would have either made like either Scorpio Taurus or square to Leo or Aquarius, and I'm an Aquarius rising with Jupiter in there. So this being quite transformative past 2 years of my life. A lot of things have changed, and once again having the opportunity to reflect and introspect and retrospect on what this 2-year cycle meant for me. So that's what I want to talk about. Also today, as I'm making this video, we are having the Mercury Mars conjunction in Scorpio. That was of course active during this eclipse that just took place last night, but today Mercury is conjuncting Mars, and therefore the cycle that actually also began in 2021, but this time it was in October. They last had a conjunction on October 9th in 2021. I already spoke about this in my astrological forecast for next week, so if you're curious to hear more, you can check that out. But I just want to mention briefly that conjunction, so the beginning of the cycle, which is today ending, between Mercury and Mars had begun right after the new moon in Libra, which was not an eclipse. It was just a normal new moon in Libra. But I just feel that it's quite interesting how all these themes are building up on the top of each other. We had a new moon in Libra, Mercury Mars conjunction, and that was actually 1 month and a bit before the first lunar eclipse in Taurus that started this cycle of the eclipses between Taurus Scorpio axis. And now we had the first eclipse in Libra 2 weeks ago, the solar eclipse in Libra, which started a brand new cycle with regards to Libra, because we already had the new eclipse in Aries in the springtime. Well, depending where you are in the world, it was in April, either way. And we can see how a lot of things are culminating, but new things are already beginning, and the two are kind of happening simultaneously. So for me personally, my time with my family is coming to the close. I am actually traveling in a few days' time. Next week, I am relocating to Mexico for the winter season. This will be my third, and what I intuitively feel, my last winter in Mexico. I don't know fully what's going to happen next year. I don't know where my guides are going to take me and navigate me on my journey, but I intuitively feel that this will be my last time, as I mentioned quite a few times, and people who watched my previous videos might know, Puerto Vallarta, where I'm heading, is actually on my Pluto line, and I am Pluto Scorpio early degrees generation, so I am going to have my Pluto square Pluto, fortunately not quite next year, even though it's gonna get close, but in the following year, 2025. So I think that it is quite all very significant that I am being drawn back to PV, which is on my Pluto line, for the year before my exact square between Pluto square, like Pluto square Pluto. And of course, once Pluto moves into Aquarius, it's going to affect my first house because I'm Aquarius rising. And yeah, after my Pluto square Pluto, I will have Pluto in my first house. So yeah, so these are all very interesting themes, and it's involving for me the 12th and the first house, the endings and the beginnings, and all these energies of transformations and transmutation and facing that which still is playing out in my reality, playing a story. Also today, apart from Mercury conjuncting Mars, which is happening in opposition with Jupiter, we know that Mars was in the exact opposition to Jupiter yesterday during the time of the eclipse. Well, today Mercury made the exact opposition to Jupiter. So this is all about storytelling. You know, it's all these stories we tell ourselves because Jupiter is in Taurus, retrograde. So it's making us to reevaluate everything. And this is very present in my life right now, as I'm sure it is present in probably everybody's life, to be honest, because from my personal experience of the people around me, experience of my clients, and also just looking at the state of the world, this is all about storytelling. This is all about the story and attachment, our attachment to the stories that were passed on to us from generation to generation, the history, which is his story, not your story, and our attachment, Taurus, our attachment to these old values, and which might not necessarily be even reflecting what we need or desire. So these past 2 months since I left Bulgaria, Bansko, where it was my, you know, my ultimate freedom for the first time, having my own place and being literally the complete master of my time and my experience and my environment, like fully in charge, no one else to take into consideration and having to have to worry about. It was the very first time in my life I had that opportunity, and yeah, it was very liberating, even though I created the situations for myself with my work where I actually trapped myself under the weight of obligations and responsibilities, where I actually wasn't as free as I could have been, which is why I would like to revisit Bulgaria next year and maybe have more of a chance to enjoy the place to its fullest, which didn't quite happen this year. But anyway, these past 2 months since I left Bulgaria, and I've been staying with my parents, and then as I've been talking about, I spent 3 weeks in England, walking down the memory lane and revisiting my 19 years of my life, because England was my home for the second half of my life. I spent first 19 years in Slovakia, and then I relocated when I was 19 years old. I'm 38 now, 38 and a half really. And yeah, I spent the second half of my life in England being my home place, my residency. However, I did spend 8 years of that living on a cruise ships, traveling around the world. So I wasn't fully fixed to one place. But yet, going back to these 2 months, I, especially now with this illumination of this lunar eclipse, which is a full moon, which is obviously an opposition between sun and the moon, having the opportunity to truly recognize what this all meant for me, you know, like all these past 2 years, especially because I remember exactly what was going on in my life in 2021. It was actually 6 months after I spent the first winter of my life in Puerto Vallarta. I arrived in Puerto Vallarta for the first time in my life in November 1st, 2020. So I spent the winter there between November till end of April 2021. And then I, for the first time, returned back to England from Mexico. And yeah, in fall 2021, I was actually considering going back. I really wanted to go back, but at the time, universe decided to take me on a different journey. I got a job in a health store where I actually met my twin flame, my ex-partner, and then there was a chapter of my life that was connected with him. We were both catalysts for each other, and a massive change took place in both our life, which then led to separation and us going in a separate direction. I don't know obviously what's going on his end. We are no longer in contact, but I know what obviously has been going on for me, and how that experience completely transformed my life and pushed me in a very different direction to what I could have imagined 2 years ago. I was in a very, very different place 2 years ago. And interestingly enough, at Christmas time, winter 2021, so right after the first eclipse in Taurus, I ended up spending 1 month with my parents, which was the very, very first time since I left when I was 19 years old in 2004. It was the very first time when I spent prolonged period of time. I spent 1 month with my family, where normally I would have just come for a shorter stays, like 1 week, 2 weeks maximum, never longer than that. And during winter 2021, I ended up staying for 1 month because we all got COVID, literally the entire family, everybody got COVID. And we were obviously in isolation, lockdown, and all these kind of things that were playing out. So when I returned to the UK, I had to go again into the isolation and stuff like that. So actually my starting date with that job, the health store where I met my ex-partner, was postponed. It was postponed because I because I had to go into isolation because of the post-COVID thing. And I actually started my job on the day of his birthday, even though I didn't know it at the time. So it was just all these weird synchronicities. And our first official date was actually 1 month after his birthday and the date I started the job at the time. So anyway, so it's just interesting for me to see, like, now after 2 years, how something that I intuitively like wanted or was drawn towards at that time 2 years ago, I didn't have an opportunity to pursue at the time. Even though the desire was there, it wasn't the right time, and I had to have all these other experiences that took place in the past 2 years. And of course, after me and my ex broke up, which actually also happened right after eclipses last year. I am an eclipse baby. I was born 1 week before the eclipses, so eclipses always play a very dominant role in my life. Always big things are happening in my life around the time of the eclipses. And also I have Cancer moon, so I am very attuned to the lunar cycles. And so 1 year ago, just after the eclipse, me and my ex broke up, and I decided to, and I was I already spoke about this story, but I was being given a notice from my, at the time, landlady in the UK, and I was also being given a notice from my boss at the time, because I was still on a temporary contract, and I had to make a decision whether I was to become permanent or leave. So all these things happened literally within 1 week. There was an eclipse. I believe it was the new moon in Scorpio eclipse. It would have hit my Pluto or my south node. Something got hit, something got activated, because every single one of these eclipses hit something in my chart. And I made a choice. I made a choice to actually face the unknown and take the leap of faith and just to start something different. And that's when consequently I moved to Mexico for the second winter. I did intend to stay there forever and ever. I was never going to my intention never was to use my return flight and come back to Europe, but things worked out that way. That was led me to start in my YouTube channel and started working with astrology professionally. And one thing led to another after that. So it was literally that eclipse that created the end of most areas of my life, that set me on this path. And now obviously 1 year later, when these cycles are closing, and now again mentioning the cycle that started in 2021, which derailed me from wanting to go to Mexico again, when if that would have happened, I would have never met my ex. And he definitely was one of the biggest influences in my life, because he created, apart from my ex before that, who red pilled me, my last ex, my twin flame, was definitely one of the biggest catalysts of what happened in my life after that. So So yeah, now 2 years later, I find myself in a situation where all these cycles are closing, because during these past 2 years, even though I did have the 6 months in Mexico, but then afterwards I came back to Europe just before my visa expired, and yeah, and that led me to Bulgaria and the experiences I had there, and that then led me back to my parents' place, literally 19 years after I first left. It was literally so bizarre, because I came back with a 1 day difference, and also it was a full moon in Pisces when I left, and it was a full moon in Pisces literally on the day when I came back on the 30th of August 2023 this year. It was a full moon in Pisces again. So it's just like, it literally mind blowing when when you look at the transits, that yeah, I returned for the first time for good. I mean, with all my things since I left in August. I left for the first time on August 31st in 2004, and I came back on August 30th 2023 with all my things. And yeah, and then I had 1 month here, which I was already talking about in plentiful videos, and then, like I said, I went to England for 3 weeks. So it's closing of all these previous cycles and having the opportunity to see them from a different perspective, because like I said, we just experienced, or are experiencing as I speak, the Mercury Mars conjunction today in the sign of Scorpio, which is prompting us to make a deep investigation, deep inquiry, to go within and actually reevaluate how all these things that took place in the past 2 years either made us feel empowered or disempowered, and definitely created the opportunity for a complete transformation. And I definitely can see that in my life, in my reality, how even these 2 months, despite the fact that 3 weeks out of these 2 months I spent in England, like completely pushed me into perceiving things in a different way, from a different angle, from a different point of view. So as I mentioned, when I first came here, I was really struggling because living with my family represented a complete change to my daily routine, a complete change to my privacy or lack of privacy, and everything had to shift, because it had to obviously involve other people, because I am not living on my own. And then also going to England, I was staying with my friends. So again, the daily routine, the environment had changed. Also some adjustment had to be made and all that kind of things. And all these things gave me an opportunity for growth. And I can definitely see it now, even though I do have to confess that despite of all this growth and me acknowledging it as such, I am tired, and I really need now to have a time to my own, for my own time to myself, because even though this has been a very very profoundly transformative time this past 2 months, and it definitely gave me an accelerated opportunity for shift with regards to all these environments and these people I've been interacting with. It's still kind of, and even though it was an opportunity for adjustments, and I know that I can be quite stubborn with my strong Taurus energy and a lot of fixed energy in my chart, I still need what I need. And this is another topic that became very, very prominent for me to acknowledge. And we can also see it obviously playing out in a world setting, in a world theater, on a collective consciousness level. What happens when we are suppressing our needs, something that is actually inherently important to you personally. Like once we acknowledge that, okay, this is important to me, but maybe the environment around us say like, well, you shouldn't need what you need because someone else thinks that that's not correct, or you shouldn't need that or something. So again, I have this kind of this opposition going on here in my life, which is quite interesting, because of course Taurus and Scorpio in opposition, where I have the opportunity to acknowledge the growth and the transformation that happened because I had to adjust my needs to my environment. But then with this Taurus, and my Venus natally is in the sign of Aries, I have to also acknowledge, and my North Node actually is ruled by Aries, by the house rulership, because my Taurus is intercepted. So I have to acknowledge that, okay, well, but this is what I still need. You know, I can understand that this has been very, very helpful to me, and it helped me realize a lot of things, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. And to a certain extent, it has become comfortable. You know, either situation I found myself in, whether it's the one living with my family or staying with my friend, there were so many gifts and so many offerings for which I am very, very grateful. And it served its purpose. Like even with my family, you know, like I am being taken care of, all my basic needs, my essential needs are being fulfilled. I don't have to worry about any of the basics. As you guys might know, when you go and stay with your parents, your mom will make your laundry, your dad will make your food, your favorite food, or whatever it is, you know. So there are all these aspects of it that are very comfortable, you know. They're very comfortable, and of course I'm very grateful for all of those. Obviously I saved money on rent and stuff like that, so there is definitely there are pros to this situation, which I need to take into consideration. It's not like it's all bad and, you know, poor me or anything. So I can definitely see a lot of gifts in the situation. On the other side of that, I also have to acknowledge that I have my limitations, and where, you know, boundaries have to be set. Because again, taking us back to what are your needs, what is, you know, important to you personally, and acknowledging that, okay, this is what it is, regardless of what somebody else thinks, whether they think it should be important or not. For example, like, you know, my mom thinks, well, you shouldn't be making so many videos, but I feel the need to make these videos. It's actually something that helps me to creatively self-actualize, you know, making these videos, even if nobody is watching them, even if they help just one person, it is an expression of me. It's something that I want to do because it helps me to creatively self-actualize, and it actually makes me happy to put this stuff out there, to put it into the collective consciousness, and whoever needs to hear it will tap into this. Like, I am letting go of the outcome, like, oh yeah, how many likes or how many subscribes or how many whatever. And I am not thinking of that at all when I'm making these videos. For me, I'm making them because I have the need to express myself, and this is the medium through which I express myself. So again, not all of my needs can be understood and reflected back to me by my environment, you know. But again, this was an opportunity to recognize and acknowledge that, well, but it's my responsibility to validate myself and not to seek the approval and validations from the external, especially when I know that the people around me, they chose, or I designated them to play the role that they play, to, in this incarnation, offer the contrast to help me understand that, okay, well, they're not going to want the same thing as you, so you need to find the strength within yourself to actually validate yourself and find the bravery to go in the new direction, even though nobody may understand, or something like that. So again, going to the needs is that, like I said, I am very grateful and I see the gifts and offerings in all these situations. However, I still am like in a situation now after 2 months of these experiences, that I have to acknowledge that I need to have my own space. I need to have the time to myself. As much as I love spending time with my family, and I really enjoy time spending with my nephews, especially my 1-year-old nephew, I really, really cherish that. It is not the path I chose. I didn't choose to be a mom. I didn't choose to be an everyday presence in my family's life. This is not the path that I chose for this incarnation, at least not at this stage in my life. I don't know whether that's going to change or not, but at this stage, it is not my primary need, even though I can enjoy it for a certain period of time. But my primary need, which is the need for solitude and need to take care of myself and need to have my own time and space and be free to do what I need to do, that is dominant. That is dominant, of course, in some people's from their point of view and from their experience and perception of reality, that might be classed or labeled as selfish, which is perfectly understandable, and it is whatever, you know, whatever people feel that it is. In my personal experience, based on my personal values and needs, this is a self-care. And now, after 2 months of having very little of that, I can feel the limitation that is represents to my to my growth and to my happiness, like how this is limiting me now from actually being able to be fully enjoying my life, let's just say. So this is something which, again, after 2 months I had the opportunity. There is all these layers, which again, I don't know whether I'm explaining this well, but there are all these layers of learning which I had the opportunity to, and I was presented to with them, and I had the opportunity to learn, to integrate, to identify, right? And now with this full moon in Taurus lunar eclipse that happened in conjunction with my sun, and sun is the rule of my seventh house, which is the other. It's not just your partner, it's anybody else. This is the other based on evolutionary astrology. It's the house of how we relate to the other. It became so clear to me, and especially because I had a healing session, I had a Akashic record session with my good friend, and a lot of things became even more illuminated to me. And again, I am so grateful for all these opportunities and the gifts that I was being presented with through this experience. But on the other side of it, I also had the moment of understanding that my primary dominant need is not this, and how important it is for someone to take care of their needs, because otherwise that is being projected onto someone else, and that someone else has a different need which they are projecting onto you, and then there might be a conflict. This is usually how arguments happens in the relationships, because you need what you need, your partner needs what they need, and if there is a misalignment, then there is like a big finger pointing and blaming that, oh, I gave you this, why you didn't give me that. But if the needs are different, then there could be a problem. So for example, in this situation, my parents think like, well, you don't have to pay rent, you have your own room, my dad makes me my favorite food, my mom does my laundry, whatever. And they feel like, well, you should be happy, right? Like, what's wrong with you? Yeah, what is the problem, right? But that is not my primary need. Like, yes, of course I need to eat, and of course I need to have my clothes washed, yeah, but this is like, I can do it myself. I don't need somebody to, like, it's nice, obviously I appreciate it, I'm grateful, but it's not my primary need. My primary need is my own space where I can actually do things on my own time, and not feel obligated or being guilt tripped for not fulfilling other people's needs and expectations, which is, in my family, there is this massive theme of codependency and enabling and enmeshment and all of that. And I am like the complete opposite. I'm like, no, I'll be on my own. Thank you very much. Which, of course, it's like, can be completely imbalanced and out of alignment, because there always have to be a balance in everything. But as I said, now I got to the point where, yeah, having all my survival basic needs met is fantastic, but now I need to go to Scorpio. Now I need to be on my own to be able to go and sit with myself and process all these themes internally, rather than just to have this external reflection all the time. So anyway, so I know that I just keep going in circles about the same thing, but I just wanted to give some examples because especially as I'm coming to the end of my experience here in Slovakia, England, and then Slovakia, like walking down the memory lane and reflecting pretty much on the past, 19 to 38 year cycle, not just the 2 year cycle, but it's just interesting how 2 years ago I was pretty much in the same place, really wanted to go to Mexico at the time. That wasn't the path for me. There were all these other things that had to happen in between, which now I completely understand why they had to happen, what they had to take place. And yeah, now finding myself again on a crossroads where, yeah, I am, unless there is a tower moment, I am flying to Mexico next week for the winter. I'll be there until end of April again. And yeah, and let's see what that experience will bring for me, like based on the readings I'm doing for myself, especially with tarot. There is a lot of death cards going on for me, so all this death in rebirth, very in alignment with the Pluto line and my Pluto square Pluto approaching very quickly. So yeah, for me, I am very curious, I am very scorpionic, I am not afraid of this themes and topics, and yeah, I feel ready for it. I feel ready for it, even though this has been very comfortable. And I even said to my friends, it would be so comfortable, you know, just to stay, because it's like this comfort zone, you know, all your basic needs are met. Well, you know, don't have that many responsibilities apart from having to sacrifice all my free time, which for some people is okay, because some people like being with other people. I'm not saying I don't, but in a small doses I prefer to be on my own. And then I had very little of that. So that's why I feel that this past 2 months actually have been a perfect culmination of the 2 year cycle for me, that allowed me to have this closing experience of what I was meant to understand, I suppose, with regards to my need and values and my relationship to myself, and also being able to put the boundaries and stand up for myself, and but also having the love and compassion and understanding for the other, and also why they operate the way they do, why they're coming up from the point where they are coming up from, and also you know, appreciate and understand their needs and values, and relationship to themselves and relationship to the other, and what are they seeking. So that's why I always say that there is just so much we can learn on our own, and that's why everything is always cyclical. There is a time when people stay, you know, like choose to be in isolation, choose to be on their own. But then there are always times in one's life where we actually want the interaction with the other. We want to, you know, open our life, our heart, our home to some other people or the other person, because we need this mirror, this reflection that is then taking us to the next level. Because how much we can learn on our own is limited to the personal experience, but both are needed. And that's the thing, you know, there always has to be the balance. And now I feel that things became unbalanced again, where now I need to go to the other side. I need to go to the Scorpio. I need to go to my Pluto line and have all these transformative experiences when I'm facing all this discomfort and fears and whatever else is going to come up, on my own, without my family being there to hold my hand and saying, don't worry, we're gonna cook for you. So yeah, so this been very profound for me, very strong energy that's been streaming through. Actually, side note, everybody in my family has been sick. They had some 24-hour virus where everybody has been unwell, their stomach was not well and stuff. So that was very interesting to me, because excuse me, it was happening in the same time as this lunation, which of course with the Scorpio, with the Taurus, is all about your, you know, your mouth and what comes into your body, and with the Scorpio is what comes out of your body, right? So I felt that it was so profound. And of course, lunation is, you know, moon is always with the stomach, you know, like what gives you the sense of safety and security. And we usually always feel it in our stomach, you know, like when your stomach constricts, when you don't feel safe and secure. So even me, like I wasn't sick or anything, but I did feel these emotions in my body, even though I wasn't like physically sick. But I also felt really tired, very overwhelmed with all these energies, and it's been really intense. Like for me personally, it's been very intense. I know it's been very intense in my family, and again, I feel that it's so interesting that you know, that last winter 2021 everybody had COVID, and now it feels everybody had some stomach bug or something, which only lasted like 24 hours, which again is very interesting how it's happening at the same time as this full moon lunar eclipse, and then it's like just gone, right? Just disappears. Also with these now new cycles are beginning, these old cycles are culminating, new ones are beginning. And we have the opportunity to make a different choice, right? Like what I'm always talking about, having the opportunity to make a new choice under the same circumstances to create a different outcome. Because if we make the same choice under the same circumstances, we cannot expect different outcome. It's just not gonna come, right? So in a sense, yeah, you know, I might be making the same choice going to Mexico for the third time, but it's under different circumstances. Because this time, you know, first time I went to Mexico, very, very, very first time in 2020 to meet with my ex-boyfriend that I met on a cruise ship during my last contract. I was in a completely disempowered state. I had no money, I had no profession, I had no skills, nothing. Literally was just like, you know, rose tinted glasses, everything will work out, it's fine. And obviously it didn't work out the way I expected to, but the way it worked out actually turned out to be perfect, you know, like looking back, obviously over the time, it didn't feel that way at the time. And then the second time when I went to Mexico again, it was kind of like, you know, I didn't have much time to think about it. It was literally just like, okay, this is what I'm doing. My life is falling apart. I have nothing really to lose. You know, my relationship is gone. My home is gone. My job is gone. You know, let's just go, right? Like completely unprepared, completely like the fool, absolutely unconscious, like just trusting the push of universe and like, okay, let's go. And yeah, and of course that, you know, it has a lot of pros and cons. I was pushed to start my astrological career professionally, and yeah, and I fell on my ass quite a few times, you know, like when there were no clients, no booking, I had no idea what I'm doing. Like, you know, it's not like I have much more idea now, but at least I feel more confident as an astrologer. And yeah, this time I'm going from a little bit different point of view. Also, the first two times I was going to be cohabiting with people I was depending on. First time with my ex, second time with my good friend. And this time neither of these options are available to me. So this time I am still staying in Airbnb where there will be other people. I don't have my own place. But it's people I don't know, and I don't own anything, so I don't have to adjust, you know, like at least not emotionally to these people. It's like more just like a, you know, mutual respect for one another. So yeah, let's see how this opportunity works out. But it's coming from a different place, you know, like a little bit different circumstances to each of the time that happened previously. And yeah, I really don't know. I don't know what I don't know. I don't know where this is going to lead, but I feel that I have a little bit more understanding and trust in myself than I did ever before, really, because I truly believe that with every next, you know, challenge and opportunity for level up a little bit, you are more attuned to yourself, and especially your sense of self-sufficiency and self-reliant, because you know that, okay, I've gone through all of this, I survived, so I can survive whatever else is coming. You know, it could be easier, it could be harder, but at the end of the day, you know that whatever you had to go through, you made it this far, so it's very likely you're gonna make it farther. You know, you're just gonna find a way, because the true sense of resiliency and, you know, self-reliance and all that, this Taurus, the survival instinct, is within you. It doesn't come from anyone else. So that's the thing, you know, like each time I went there relying on other people, like my ex and my friend, like, okay, well, she's not gonna kick me on the street, you know, I'm gonna be fine. So that prompted me to go. But now this time it's like, well, there's nobody going to hold my hand, you know, the landlord doesn't care, you have no money, out. You know, it's not like it's my friend. So it's a very different energy. And yeah, and I'm just gonna try, I'm just gonna go for it like the fool again. And see what experience that leads to. But anyway, guys, 37 minutes, I should start wrapping this up, because I'm just going on about the same thing. But all in all, it is the opportunity to see things from a different perspective, because once we shift our way of looking at things and identify them in a different way, that situation changes, even though you might not think that much has changed. But every time there is a shift, any change, whether it's in the way you think, in what you believe, things are changing, things are moving in a different direction. And that's how I'd like to believe these 2 months that I spent here, that's what they brought into my life. That's how they've been affecting me, that now being like forced to stay in that situation and experience it, couldn't run away, I had nowhere to run. So I just had to deal with it, and I needed to find a way to adjust myself and my fixation onto what I believe I needed to do, or I was entitled to. I had to make all these adjustments to have a different experience, and then to also be able to perceive the situation from a different lens, which then led to certain lessons to be learned, I'd like to hope. And also having this knowing for the next time, you know, also understanding that, okay, now I understand myself better, I understand my limitations better, and where my boundaries are, which in many cases people don't know where their boundaries lie until they get crossed. So nothing is ever wasted in the universe. Every experience always has something positive in it. It doesn't matter what the experience is. It always has something positive in it. Or eventually, over the time, we will recognize that it served its purpose and where it led us. You know, what the experience actually gave us to bring us to certain path or something, or gave us certain tools or whatever it is. So that's the same for me, even though my little microcosm is obviously nothing very extreme. But on the emotional level, this literally is closing of the cycles that has been, to a certain extent, showing up for me all my life, 38 years, especially this relationship and the familial dynamic that are between me and my family members. And now looking at things a little bit differently. Also, the more that I understand that I need to take care of what I need and not be in a resistance or at the war with myself for needing what I need because of what somebody else is thinking or believing, or whether they giving me the approval to need what I need or whatever. The more I actually take care of myself in that way, which I don't see as selfish, I see it as self-care, then the more I can be there for others. But again, after 2 months, I am coming to the end of my, I can see the boundaries right there in front of me. Like, there's the limit. It's the end. Like, okay, I've given as much as I could, and now I feel I really need to now take care of myself. And I am not going to be able to do that staying in this environment. It's just not quite possible. It is not possible. It's not the right environment for that, which is how I know that this is the closing of another cycle. Like, literally, with this full moon, this last final lunar eclipse in Taurus in conjunction with my sun, this is closing these cycles. And who knows if this cycle will ever show up in this way for me again. Who knows if I'll ever spend 1 month with my family the way that it's been this time, even though it was like 1 month, then 3 weeks in England, and now 2 weeks here. I don't know if this will ever take place the same way again. Obviously, there are things that are outside of my control because they involve other people, and everybody's got their free will. They are all creators of their own realities, and I don't know what's going to be happening, obviously, in the next 6, 12 months, whatever, and how all these players will decide to play the role that they play in. So this is how I'm looking at it, that in certain from a certain point of view, I do feel the finality. I do feel this completion of something, that there are some doors that are shutting and clicking, the locks are clicking in a place and saying, this is the end of this experience, because it will never happen the same way again. So yeah, let's see what the next experience is going to bring for us. And to me, it's exciting. It's always exciting to know that there is some new energy coming, even though I know that there could be a lot of insecurity, in some ways fears, because we don't know what we don't know. But for me, it's like, well, I know what I know. And I don't necessarily enjoy everything that I know. So let's just try something that I don't know. So let's see where that is going to lead. So, like, final notes, I am very grateful. I'd like to hope that this Mercury-Mars conjunction that is closing the cycle of the past 2 years, and the last eclipse in Taurus that is the closing of the cycle of past 2 years, but also bigger cycle of 19 years, 38 years, whatever it is for you. I really feel that there is a completion of certain process, and now this new energy is streaming through that is giving us yes, insecurity, but a hope for something better, something new, something different to come. And everything is changing. We have the opportunity to rewrite the story. Of course, Mercury will conjunct Jupiter, because both Mars and Mercury are in opposition with Jupiter, so there will be conjunctions with both of them. I believe still in a sign of Taurus. For Mercury, for sure, in the sign of Taurus. For Mars, I'm not 100% sure, and I don't have my notes, so I can't tell you for sure. But either way, they are halfway, between Jupiter and Mars and Mercury. They are halfway, because this conjunction, and also the, Sun as a counterpart to Moon in this eclipse, they happened in opposition with Jupiter. And Jupiter is the storyteller, and Jupiter still is retrograde. And Venus as the ruler just recently made a trine to Jupiter. She actually is about to make a exact trine to Uranus on Halloween's day. Just to help us to remember that day. And this is all supportive. This is all supportive, even though it might not feel that way, but it is all supportive on this journey of breaking free from the outdated patterns and bringing us closer to becoming a true, authentic version of yourself and living the life of your choosing in alignment with what matters to you. Because of course this grand Earth trine, it's present in the sky again because of Venus being in Virgo. So that's between Venus, Uranus, and Pluto. And Pluto is still trining Uranus because it's in the sign of Capricorn. So this is definitely an opportunity to let go of the outdated patterns that we had the opportunity to identify, especially since 2008 when Pluto entered Capricorn, and this is the larger scale. This is the collective scale, like what have we learned since 2008 that now lost meaning, and we now identify as something that doesn't hold the meaning anymore. This external authority, this structure that is telling us this is how you should live your life. In this case, it could even be your parents, right? Because they did the best they could, but it doesn't necessarily have to be what is right for you. But then you have to become your own authority and put the boundary and decide that this is what it is for me. And I know I can trust myself to be in charge of my life and make these choices wherever they're gonna take me. So that's what it is. But obviously behind all of that is this understanding what is it for you, your needs, your values, and having the opportunity to reevaluate the story of your life, the story we tell ourselves that is connected to these needs and values that might not be even yours, that might be somebody else's. And Venus as the ruler of both the Taurus and the Libra eclipse that we had this month is in Virgo. And Virgo is about learning and adjusting and healing and integrating because it's in opposition with Neptune. Venus, actually the exact opposition will be taking place next week, right? I think it's on the same day when Saturn stations direct. So there are definitely a lot of things happening. Once again, I want to mention that even though there is all this new energy streaming through and there are a lot of conjunctions which are representing endings and new beginnings, we still have these big energies that are in a closing phase. So this is why we still feel that there are a lot of things that we need to resolve first before we can move forward. And that's the conjunction between Chiron and North Node, which will become exact in February, and also Jupiter-Uranus, which is the big one. And of course, we have the Saturn and Neptune, but that will not take place until they move into Aries. So there is all that happening. So we know that still until 2026, and we'll have the nodes in Virgo Pisces since January 2025, there is a lot of closing phases, but new cycles starting at the same time simultaneously. And that's life. Is the hero's journey, the Virgo, the hero's journey, the learning and adjusting, and not really thinking about some final destination, because there'll always be the next thing, because that's life is in cycle. There is no end. It's round. It goes in cycles. There is no end. There is no end line. There is just end of one cycle, but that means that a new one is beginning at the same time. The balsamic phase leads to a new phase. So this is what it is for me, this closing of the cycle that is now going to be leading to a new one, and that will be a part of a closing of a bigger grand cycle. And at the same time a new cycle is opening up, because my perception of things and identifying of these experiences is different to what it was before, and a lot of that is thanks to having this opportunity to having to have to be present in a moment because of all these other people that are actually real in my life and require me to be present right here, right now, especially the kids, because they don't understand, like, hey, you have something else to do, like, I'm here now, pay me attention. They definitely help to ground us, right? So anyway, guys, I'll leave it at that. I hope that this has resonated with some and it's been maybe even helpful. You can retrospect what it's been for you for the past 2 years, what closing of the cycles you are experiencing that maybe are closing a grand cycles or closing smaller cycles that are allowing new cycles to begin. And this is all part of micro and macrocosm. and having the opportunity to look at that story, right? His story, and make it your own. The story of Jupiter in Taurus retrograde. So yeah, so as I said, this is my last video, my last long video from Slovakia. All going well. Next time, my personal share and astrological forecast and everything that will follow will be made in Mexico. So much love to everyone. Have a beautiful rest of the weekend, great week ahead, and I'll speak to you again from the other side. Bye for now. Bye.